what an honor to have you come join us on peacepodcast.org. I'm Barbara Gaughan-Mueller, your host, and you are in for an awakening today, a wild awakening made possible by Anne Baring, our guest. You are on peacepodcast.org. Each guest is going to help you deeply understand the link between peace, healthy living, and happiness. You're going to be inspired by the life's experiences that they have had in the books they've written. But today, Anne Baring, my very special guest, let me introduce her because I want you to know how much I have appreciated this woman. I met her at La Casa de Maria. We were having a very special conference with Dr. Robert Mueller, my late husband. Anne Baring said, why did I fly clear across the world to be at La Casa de Maria in order to, and then she said, now I know why, to meet Dr. Robert Mueller. After she got home, she wrote me an email. And in that email, she said his energy and her energy combined, it was one of the most powerful conferences I have ever been to. And I thank you and I welcome you.
I remember that very well. Thank you that you kept a note of it all these years. Lovely.
I couldn't throw that piece of paper away. I printed out your email and I read it all of the time because I had 23 years of inspiration with that man. I didn't marry him right away because I thought he's 20 years older. What a stupid idea. And I thought, no, if I even have 10 minutes with him, it's the best 10 minutes of my life. And you know, you have that 3-second window sometimes. Do you find that intuition telling you to do something?
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
Well,
telling me to write that book. That was not exactly
the book. Let me hold this up. Audience, you must see the beautiful blue background she has. This is the beautiful blue book that took her 20 years to write.
Yes. Can I hold up the new cover, Barbara?
Oh, yes. Oh, look at that. The Dream of the Cosmos, A Quest for the Soul. This is a beautiful cover. Thank you. And this is the new version.
That's the new printing. It's an up-to-date. It's not really new, but it's got new things in it and up-to-date. And that was printed in April, so it's very recent.
I'm going to buy that. I just bought this one, and it's full of lines and underlines and stickies. And because I keep thinking, if I read this wisdom, I'll know what to do with my life. The ground for her work, or the ground for Anne's work, is this deep interest in history, as well as the spiritual mythological traditions that she brings into this book. The sense of communication between us and the invisible world, the veil is very thin. And she talks about how we can tap into that veil. I always call them the unemployed saints, but she talks a little more mythical. You know, she brings in the source of her groundwork is called life. Anne lives in Winchester, near in the UK, and I'm going to start with something very special. What does peace mean to you, Anne?
Peace means the tranquility of the heart, I think, after thousands of years of war and killing and distrust and fear. So peace means the restoration of the harmony of the heart, I think. Yeah, that's almost like a channeling statement.
The harmony of the heart. You know, as I read your book, I kept finding these multi-layered definitions, but they were so simply put. You know, like you say, the peace is say it again, peace is the
harmony of the heart, or will be the harmony of the heart when we get there eventually. I think we're moving there pretty rapidly.
You know, you say the harmony of the heart. I always end my emails with peace and harmony, because I think if we're in harmony with the heart, the soul, the universe, the each other, and the earth. And that's what I loved about your book, because you kept talking about how we could transcend our lives into the future and how we can bring the future into the present. Let's talk a little bit about your book. If you were to summarize your book in a few sentences, what would you say?
I would say that it's a book about a quest, a heart and soul quest. And it's a historical book. It's looking at the past of why and where we went wrong 4,000 years ago, what happened before that, when we were living in a much better relationship with the cosmos, and how we've got to get that relationship back pretty quickly. PDQ, one says in America, yes?
It is true. We have to get it back, Anne. That's why I keep reading your book. It's not going to happen if we just think about it. We have to take action.
Well, we do definitely. At every level, we have to take action at the political level, action at the level of the body, rescue the poor body from being used like a sort of shoe, really, doing the will of the master, the mind, so to speak. So we've got to get out of the habit of thinking that we can solve everything with the mind. We have to solve things with the intuition and with a heart-centered focus, really, of consciousness. And with that, we can open to all kinds of things. We've been closed off from nature, first of all through religion. Religion split nature off from spirit. That was the first mistake. The second mistake was science, saying that there was no such thing as God, no such thing as the soul, and that nature was really there to serve us. That's been the basic message of the last 300 years. And look where we are now. Look at the planet. Look at the state of the planet. And I should think that Gaia, or whatever you want to call the planet, is very distressed and very angry. I didn't perhaps bring this into the book, but it's there. It's the unconsciousness of the state that we're living in, where we don't see what we've done and we don't see what we're doing. And this needs to change and rapidly. So that's what my book is all about. It has the historical overview as to why we're in the present situation, why we lost the connection with the earth and also with the cosmos, because in the old civilizations, they were always directed by a relationship with the cosmos, both astrologically and in their ceremonies, which were connected to the life of the earth always, so that you had cosmos, earth, and human beings in alignment. That word alignment is very important.
Alignment makes me think of something you said a couple of minutes ago, heart-centered thinking. That has intrigued me beyond belief. I talked with, you are a visioneer and you are a Hero of Humanity award winner. I congratulate you. You are our hero of humanity. But when you said heart-centered thinking, it made me stop. And I got to thinking about the mind is not the mind that we want to bring our peace to the world with. It's the heart. And is that what you were talking about when you said heart-centered thinking? Can you talk a little bit about that? I think that's a new concept for an awful lot of people.
Well, for a long time, we've been focused on the mind and developing the mind, making it an instrument of, of exactly what we wanted to shape, really, in our environment. And we've completely neglected the heart. We've gone up here and all down here has been neglected, including the whole body. But also there's very interesting understanding now about the two hemispheres of the brain. And we've been focused on the left hemisphere, which is the sequential, one thing after another kind of consciousness.
The one they teach us about in college.
Yeah, and the imagination has been neglected. The right hemisphere, which would really connect us to a much greater whole, or a greater entity, if you like, of the cosmic entity, that's been neglected. And because that's been shut down, it's almost as if we shut the door on it. We're too much focused on the left hemisphere, too much focused on rational thinking, which is not rational because it leaves out a whole chunk of the unconscious. As a Jungian, I should say that because I'm a Jungian analyst. And it's like saying that you're not aware of all the icebergs under the sea. You can't go sailing across the sea unless you're aware of the icebergs. And what happened to the Titanic? We know that. So that's what it's all about, moving from that focus up here to much more of a focus on feeling, which doesn't mean that you have to be overwhelmed by feeling, but just that you have to take account of feeling in what you're doing. Are you balancing feeling with thinking? Are you focused in the right kind of unified way of approaching your life? Or are you only saying, how do I get from A to B?
Heart-centered thinking, I think, would describe Robert Mueller, my late husband, very carefully, because he woke up every morning and had to write. And it was coming from his heart. And it did not come from right here, even though he was very logical. And he wrote the peace plan for 2050 and all of the other good things because he was quite bright. And I always felt that it was his heart that was talking to me. Like he would just tell me how much he loved me. Then he would go right. There was opened up his heart.
I'm sure that's right. You're a very lucky woman to have had that.
I sure was and
A man
am.
with an open heart, because many men find great difficulty opening their hearts to women in particular, because they're too frightened to do so in case they make fools of themselves, or in case something goes wrong in the relationship. But
Well,
that's very important what you said. And also, if you're in touch with the heart, then your brain works better. They've discovered this. When you have the line going from the heart to the brain functions in a much better way, in a much more holistic way. Otherwise, it's like it's starved of energy if you're only focused up here and not down here as well.
absolutely right. I went, Gloria, go ahead, please. I wanted to tell you a little.
Sure that, your husband, Robert, I'm sure that this is what happened with him. He was in touch with his heart, the feelings came through, and then he was able to translate them into what he wanted to do in an intellectual sense. He could make plans.
There's something about what you're saying. I know you've made a lot of speeches, but do you notice that the audience resonates with you because you're speaking from your heart? That there's a chemistry that goes on because you're using your heart? Have you noticed that?
Yes, I have, because I usually read my talks because my memory is not so good, but every now and then I stop and then I make a little remark which immediately connects me to the audience. Right. And then I go on with my actual, whatever the talk is about. But it's very important that, because we're all human beings connected to each other, and the more we can connect, the more response one will get from people. And obviously they're pleased that you pay attention to what they might be feeling and noticing it. Yeah.
I have to share a story. May I share a little story with you?
Yeah,
Robert and I were offered a trip to Japan, and he was going to receive an award. And one of the Japanese leaders wanted to put his Most of All They Taught Me Happiness into Japanese. And so we went there for the grand opening of the book, Most of All They Taught Me Happiness. And there were billboards all over Japan with the book and this Japanese and my husband. Well, we were treated like queens and kings. And because, people really believe in happiness. Happiness is what the Japanese believe in. And that's how they could forgive us for everything that happened during World War II, because they wanted happiness more than they wanted to have anger. Long story short, we go to the Sumo Wrestler Auditorium. We're standing in this tiny little stage with all these people squashed together in these tiny little square boxes, which is called the family box. And Robert makes his speech and plays his harmonica, the Ode to Joy. And I stand up, and it's my turn to speak. And I say, I'm getting chills, because I'm talking 3,000, 4,000 people. And I say, my heart is here for you. I got a standing ovation with my heart is here for you. I didn't have to say any more. I stopped talking. I was done.
What a lovely thing to say, though, and went straight to the heart. So you're absolutely wonderful.
And they all felt it. And I'm getting chills now, because that was the most powerful moment, I think, of all the years I had with Robert. And there were so many moments like that, because he would start his speeches with the Ode to Joy, do, 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 on the 10-hole harmonica, and the whole audience would just roar. And now if you go to peacepodcast.org, you can hear that harmonica. You may want to join me on my little blog there and listen to Robert, because I had to put it there. I had to let everybody who goes to peacepodcast.org listen to this man and how he inspires you with his songs and his music. What inspires you? What keeps you going, Anne?
I think the love of humanity, love of the planet, and the feeling that I have to continue with this work of whatever I'm giving out in whatever way I can for as long as I can. But I love music too. I haven't had enough time to listen to music, and I love classical music particularly. And I love reading. I read, as you can see from that book, I've read hundreds of books to be able to.
Not only has she read hundreds of books, she's written 7 books. This woman has never been idle. Before the conversation today, I asked her if she was glad she married an artist, because when a man is busy, you can do your work and you can have these moments of peace and quiet.
Yeah, we've each done our work in our own separate ways, and he's never interfered with mine. I've never interfered with his. I make no comment on his work, but it's perfect harmony. We've been married over 60 years, so it's harmony.
Congratulations. You have the magic to make it work. It's work, isn't it, to be in a marriage?
Yeah, it is. And there's also the routine of the everyday, the cooking and the shopping and the this and the that, and seeing things working properly, and the plumbing's not going to cause problems, and all that has to be attended to.
Are you finding the same thing with this COVID-19, that we're experiencing a new quiet on the planet and a
Yeah,
new upset too?
yeah, absolutely. It reminds me, the story of the Sleeping Beauty? It reminds me that the whole court of humanity has been put under a spell, and we're under a spell, and we can't move, so to speak. And there's no noise, there's no airplane noise, there's very little car noise, although it's starting up again. There's no children noise, which is sad, because there's no schools. And, it's as if everything has fallen silent, as if we're waiting for something, as if we're waiting for something that's going to happen or change, because this is the time when we could change. We can make the change if we think about it enough, and make this connection to nature, and make the connection to a deeper level in ourselves, which used to be called soul.
And you have given me a new word. We're under a spell. I never thought about that. I have never, I'm sorry to say this, people who are listening, been happier. Why? The universe around me, my neighborhood, is quiet. I see the universe is responding to this quiet. I see nature responding, and I am glorified by the fact that I can walk into my garden and I don't hear blowers, I don't hear lawnmowers, because everybody can't do what they used to do.
That's
And
right.
I love it.
It is extraordinary, though. And also the more birds in the garden, and even the flowers look happier. So,
I'm now the president of the Rotary E-Club of World Peace. Why? Because there's 35,000 Rotary clubs, Anne, and I believe that if we work together, that's millions of Rotarians working for peace. That's why I'm president. Long story short, the other day, a friend of mine came over and handed me the bell. He had to drive because we can't, really get together anymore. And so he handed me the Rotary bell, and I took him to my backyard. He just stopped. He didn't say a word, because the flowers, the agapanthus, the fruit trees, everything is just bursting with their joy right now.
yeah, and with a feeling of health, they look healthy and sort of really strong. I've noticed that really quite remarkably this spring.
And it's happening to me too, Anne. Like, I am more strong, I'm more present, I'm available. And it's because I don't have the hustle and bustle around me to take my time away from me, Bless you for understanding that.
Yeah, the Taoists call that the 10,000 things that take up too much time in our lives. And they said, just leave the 10,000 things and concentrate on what's really important, which is the soul and the relationship with nature. And that was a great lesson to us.
And how do you make sure you do that?
Well,
I have a routine.
Sorry?
Do you have a routine that makes you, or is it intuition? What guides you, Anne?
I think it's just the feeling of what feels right at a particular time of day. There's a time for writing. I'm still doing a lot of writing. I do that in the morning. Then there's a time for going out and maybe having a walk. And then there's a time for shopping once a week, because I can't go out. And then there's a time for preparing meals in the evening, and having time with my husband to just sit in the evening together. That's nice. So there's a time for everything, as the Bible said, a time for doing this, a time for doing that. And you get in the rhythm. But if you're distracted by too much internet or too much telephone or too much people in your life, you get nothing done. You're just in a state of confusion, really. But I'm speaking as an introvert, and our culture is extrovert, absolutely, without a question. People enjoy going out with people much more than I do. I like being by myself and with my husband, sort of thing. But I understand the need to be with people. And of course, this has been blocked off. This is why we've been under a spell, because we haven't been able to go out and meet and meet in restaurants and all sorts of places, particularly the young. So it's been very difficult from that point of view. It's brought us up short and made us think, I think, a bit more. I hope.
That's very interesting you say that, because I think sometimes being so busy is an escape from who you are. And this time when you can't just go out to a restaurant, escape from that moment when you need to eat in order to have a conversation, I really think that this is a time for us to rethink some of the priorities in our life. And my priority is alone time. I need that alone time to bring me to who I am so that my life means something.
Well, I think, Jung spoke of something he called the spirit of the depths. He said there's the spirit of the times, which is the level of the kind of superficial culture, and there's the spirit of the depths. And if you don't allow any time to listen to the voice of the spirit of the depths, you miss half of life or even 3/4 of life. And that's such a lovely image of listening to the spirit of the depths, I think, because unless we know we have depths, we're not going to listen.
And I think you have just summarized why so many people are agitated right now. They haven't discovered their depth. They haven't discovered their bond to their inner soul, to their inner heart, and to their inner knowing, and to their inner want. They say, know what you want and you will get it. If what you want is peace and quiet like I wanted, then I find Robert I was with Robert for 23 years, and now Sig Watney's in my life. And we attract who we are too. I want to make that message really clear. To attract who you are and be who you are so that you can attract what you want in your life. Is that kind of your model too?
Yes, although it's not so conscious. I know it's very much part of the general feeling now that you make your idea of your goal and then you move towards it and things happen. But they don't happen unless you're really in touch with your depths. Then they happen. You get synchronicities, you get intuitive insights like your husband did, and you get a direction in your life, and you get guidance. And people need guidance. That's what's missing. So if you have time for just quiet and listen to that voice, write down what you hear, write down whatever thoughts occur to you, and keep a sort of a journal or a diary of these thoughts. It doesn't have to be a lot of thoughts. Just one a day would be plenty.
Even a sentence a day would do it. I find myself today, right when I was getting ready for our conversation, and it takes me time to get ready because I have to be in that right mental set, and I have to make sure the lights are right and my lipstick's on and all the other things. Long story short, I was in such gratitude that I could do that. For every step of the way, I could walk out of the room and do what I needed to do, check my microphone, and all the people who make this possible. My IT man, Tony, everybody. I was in I started writing in my gratitude journal. I couldn't write fast enough for all the gratitude I was feeling. And then my great gratitude was being with you, Anne. I'm so grateful for you. I know some people who are born in 1931 are retiring and they're watching TV. I want to thank you for not doing that. I want to thank you for working hard and giving us your message. And I cut this page out and I made a copy of it in your book. It's page 264. Now, this book is not a short book. This book.
It's not a short book. It's a book for dipping into. It's a book for dipping into, not for reading from cover to cover.
It's a book you step into when you need it. I stepped into page 264, and it says right here, Jung, shortly before he died, gave us hope for the future, reminding us that what seems of supreme importance to one's own life path, and this is you, Anne, may not ultimately have value for the world as well. Now, that's actually on page 265. And then she quotes about using your heart, how to understand that. She gives us more reading that we can do. But in each, there is at least a few individuals that understands that man's task consists of and keeps its tradition for future generation, and a time when insight has reached a deeper and more general level. And I think that's where we are now on our planet.
I think so, because we've developed the intellect. We don't need more brain power, but we do need heart power. And I think we're at that crucial stage of having to make a choice. This is a critical time of choice, really, where we have to choose a different way of living and a different way of relating to the planet and a different way of relating to each other. I mean, God help us with, look what's going on in Hong Kong, look what's going on in the Middle East, and what's been going on in America, with the whole situation of the people of color rising up in rage. But that's good rage in a way, because this has been sat upon for 200-300 years. It's got to come out, but it's got to be held with understanding and with love above everything else. Love is the key, and we've got to understand that love extends from our dogs and our children, which gives us a feeling of what love is, but it's got to extend to the whole of humanity, and it's got to bring up these terrible wounds that humanity has carried and heal them. And if it doesn't come up into consciousness, that it can't be healed, and they just fester.
That is so beautifully said. If I were to take one portion of this podcast and put it in writing, that's where I'd put it, what you just now said, the healing that will take place with love, because we have to look at what isn't working. We have to look at the atrocities and the sadness that we have created by our greed and by our wanting to have more, and by not paying attention to nature. When I was on the Future Society, I said I wanted to start a company, not a company so much, but a movement, United Nature. If we look at nature, we learn so much, and nature doesn't destroy each other. They just work in harmony. That's why evolution works so well, because you learn. And I think we're at that evolutionary stage, right, Anne?
I think we are, and I think we need a new Security Council in honor of nature, and get rid of all this particular political rubbish of getting onto the Security Council and thinking you're in power and everything. We need to drop all that power stuff and get into relationship and love.
Oh, absolutely. I have my masseuse always tells me, and I don't go anymore, but I'm still doing okay. She says, when the love of power is replaced by the power of love, then we will have the kind of world we need. And she believes, and I do too, that kindness and love go together. Gratitude goes, out of gratitude comes the love that you need for your whatever's happening in your life. And even the things that don't work teach us something.
Absolutely, they do. We learn all the time if we have an open mind. And there's so many things that one can love when you really think about it. And even that rage that came up, it's all about love for that poor man who died. You know, it's rage.
And who did he call out for, Anne? He called out for his grandmother.
His mother.
Was his
Mama.
mother?
Mama.
It was Mama.
Yeah.
That just stopped me in my path. Me in my path. I said, we have to pay attention to the rage that we have created in a whole generation, more generations than we even know. And so Anne is one of those very special women on our planet. I started my conversation with her a few months back about the feminine. Is the feminine going to really help us bring the love that we need and the kindness, and to help us save our planet? And I think what you said to me, why don't you just talk a couple of seconds about that, and then we'll close with your final words.
Well, the feminine is a very complex subject, because the feminine consists mainly of soul, nature, matter, body, and woman. But there's so much to each of those that one could expand on those. But the feminine as such won't cure anything. We have to understand that the feminine is about relationships. It's not about power. It's not about the power of women. It's about the capacity of women to increase every kind of relationship with every kind of group or person or thing, or with the life around them or anything. It's to do with focusing in a different way on give us a different reason for being on the planet. We've been through the whole stage of power and domination and control. That is finished now. It's got to finish. And we need to move into a new phase of understanding we're on the planet to serve. We're here to serve life. We're here to serve each other. We're here to serve all the people that have been wounded by us and by the white races for the last God knows how long. All this, it's no good knocking down statues. You have to have a deep, really spiritual conversion in the way we look upon why we're here on the planet. I think I would end with that.
Why we are here on the planet. You are listening to Anne Baring. AnneBaring.com is her website. And I'm Barbara Gahn Mueller, and I am just quiet now, quiet with the reflection of what I've just heard. And I hope you'll take a moment to invite your friends to watch this often and have a conversation about what we heard from Anne Baring today. AnneBaring.com has so much on her website. It's a beautiful website. You'll get lost in it like I have. And I want to thank you again. Is there any last words you'd like to say?
I would just like to say thank you, because it's lovely to be given the opportunity to speak.
My pleasure. It's always my pleasure to welcome our guests. We have many people who view us over and over again. And again, I'm just honored that Anne took the time to let us understand her soul and her soul thinking and her heart thinking and her mind thinking and her beautiful book, The Dream of the Cosmos, A Quest for the Soul. Put it on your desk, open it often, and remember, each of us have the power to change our lives and to change our world. And as Jung said, in the path may ultimately have value, whatever we choose to the world as well. And just put that on your thinking. You have value. You are valuable. You are a peacemaker, and you are one of our destiny and beautiful people who was born for a reason. Love you. And thank you, Anne, for joining us.
Thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure.